Hey guys, what's up? It's Jill from ThatJapanLife. So today is November 24th. That means in a week, people are again going to be flocking to test centers all over Japan and in countries around the world in order to take the Japanese Language Proficiency Test, or the JLPT, for people living in Japan or anyone who wants to have a career in Japan. Getting the JLPT N2 is quite coveted because most Japanese companies specify that it's the minimum Japanese language requirement that they would accept in order to consider you for a job. I personally am not required by the company I work at to get the JLPT N2 or to have any kind of Japanese language proficiency for that matter. So for me, it was more of a personal goal. And I think this helped me out because without the pressure of having to take the test and having to pass the test, I was able to explore other less popular routes in order to do my studying. And somehow it worked for me. I was able to pass the test. So just to give you a quick background about my Japanese language study history. I moved to Japan February of 2017. That's when I started really studying Japanese. To be fair, before coming to Japan, I did know some Japanese. I'm married to a Japanese guy, so of course I knew some basics. But to give you an idea as to how terrible my Japanese was, I actually took the JLPT N5 a couple of months before coming to Japan. And I thought it was going to be so easy because it was N5, right? So I did not study for it very seriously. I thought the Japanese that I knew then was enough to get me through the test, but I couldn't even pass that. So yeah, that's just sad. That was the level I was at before coming to Japan. And then December 2017, I took the N4 and passed it. And then July of 2018, I took the N2 and passed it. I think it's safe to say that I went from a couldn't pass N5 level to successfully pass the N2 level in around 17 months. And also, I would just like to get this out of the way. I would like to clarify that this video is only about how I studied for the test and how I passed the test. And this is not at all about improving your Japanese language skills in general or mastering the language, because I myself am far from being an expert. I'm also just a learner, and I would not want to give out some misleading advice about studying the language. But I did successfully study for the test in 17 months using the strategies that I chose for myself. And so that's something I can speak about with honesty and with some kind of authority, and that's what I would like to share to you today. So to begin with, let me tell you about the things that I did not do. Did not use popular JLPT textbooks such as the Soumatome series or the Kanzen Master. I did not use them mainly because at the time I didn't really have access to them. And I also did not use any JLPT reviewers. I actually have one of them. And yes, this one here, this one is a reviewer for the Dokkai. That's a reading test. And this was actually a gift from a friend of mine. She's Chinese and she has been living in Japan for 11 years. And this was the book that she used in order to pass the test. And she kept it all this time. And when she learned that I was going to take the test, she decided to give it to me. And I thought it was very sweet of her and I really wanted to use it. And I also think that it's an effective book because it helped her pass. But personally, it just didn't work for me. It made me sleepy somehow when I tried to use it. She also gave me this very popular book among Japanese learners. This one is Mina no Nihongo. The same thing, I really wanted to take advantage of it, but it's just not something that worked for me personally. A lot of suggestions on the internet about studying for the JLPT also talk about watching anime. And of course, I appreciate the artistry that goes into making anime, and I think they're great. It's just that I'm so sorry, anime fans. I just didn't grow up being a big fan of anime. I grew up watching serial killer movies and drama series and with real looking blood and real looking gore and real looking guts. So when I try to watch anime, especially with the goal of studying, I I can't. I also did not go to any Japanese language school. I decided to self-study because I wanted to learn things more on my pace, and I knew that that would be more effective for me. I hope you're seeing a pattern here though, in that I did not do these things not because I necessarily thought they were bad or that they would be detrimental to your Japanese learning. I didn't do them mainly because I couldn't at the time or because they didn't work out for me. That is to say, if you are using these textbooks, if you are using these resources, and they are working out for you, then please go ahead and continue it. I am not telling you to stop it at all. I'm just telling you that I at least did not have to use these resources in order to get my JLPT N2 certification. Okay, so now on to the things that I did use to study for the JLPT. As the title suggests, I only used 3 apps in order to study for the JLPT N2. And I'm going to give you more details about them later. But those 3 apps are, first is Udemy, and then Innovative Language, and lastly, Anki Flashcards. So let's start with Udemy. First, let me tell you about how it works. I use the app Udemy. I think some of you may be familiar with it. So that's the icon of the app. And then specifically, I used courses from a company called Attain Corporation. And this company actually has set lessons geared towards mastering the N3 level, N2 level, N1 level, and all other levels of the JLPT. Now, how do their lessons work? So for the N2 course, for example, there are 10 specific lessons. And distributed among these 10 lessons are all of the additional vocabulary and grammar knowledge that you need to have in order to get to the N2 level proficiency. And each lesson is formatted like this. So you start with a video recording of a conversation. And in that conversation, the grammar knowledge that you need to have is already incorporated, as well as most of the vocabulary that is required for that lesson. So I say most because the conversation is not that long, and of course they can't put in all of the vocabulary. But that conversation is then followed by a vocabulary list. And so you get to know all of the vocabulary that you need to know for that lesson. And then also after that, they choose like very crucial vocabulary and they explain it in more detail. And then after that, you get different sections in order to study in more detail the grammar patterns and grammar usage that you need to know. So it seems like it's a lot of video, but considering it's the N2 level, it's actually manageable. Because imagine if you only have 10 lessons, and those 10 lessons are the only things that you need to take in order to get to the N2 level proficiency. That's not a lot at all. And also, so all of the lessons here come with printables. So next, let me talk about the things that I like about it. So first of all, it's not heavy. As I've said, there are only 10 lessons. So what I used to do was actually, I would sit down and study for about an hour a day. And that would allow me to finish one lesson in 2 to 3 days, depending on the length of the section. In a month or so, then you'll be finished with the entire section. So if you have a year, that's a long time. Or in my case, I had like 15 months. So that means I got to repeat the entire course multiple times. In my case, I maybe did it 5 to 6 rounds. Only 5 to 6 rounds because I skipped the N3 level. I did not take the N3 level. And just an important reminder to everyone, skipping the N3 level does not mean not studying for the N3 level. So what I did actually was I studied the N2 and N3 at the same time. So I would go through the entire N2 course and then switch to the entire N3 course, and then go back to the N2 course. Another thing that I liked about it is because there is a conversation. People like stories. People tend to remember stories. So if there is a conversation on the teaching material, you tend to be familiar with the flow of the conversation and even memorize it in some cases. And if you get to that level, then it's easier for you to remember the grammar points and the vocabulary. And of course, I also like the fact that it comes with printables. I like having a printout and, being able to highlight. Next, let me talk about how you can get it. You just make a Udemy account and then you buy this course. This is not a free course, but they are actually on sale all the time. So right now, they have a Black Friday sale. And for example, I have not tried the N1 course yet, But if I were to buy it today, instead of having to buy it for 7,491 pesos, I can have it for only 499 pesos. Wow, that's 93% off. And just like that, you can have access to this course, and it's a lifetime access as well. So on to the next app that I use, and that is the Anki app. I think a lot of Japanese learners are familiar with this app, but for those who are not, let me tell you about how it works. So basically, Anki is like an electronic version of a flashcard. So you get like the front face of the card, and then so if what's written on it is something that you're already familiar with, then so you flip, and if you got it right, then you click on easy. And then, for example, if you got it wrong, then you click on fail. They have an algorithm, and that algorithm chooses which cards to show you next, which cards to show you more often, which cards to show you less often. And also, the way it works is you can download like decks that are already on the internet. I can try to search, let's say, N1, for example, like this. And then, as you can see here, there are already a lot of pre-made decks that I can download, and I can just take advantage of them anytime. So I'll open it and then I'll review it. But also, if you don't feel like using other people's flashcards, make your own. The things that I like about this is, first of all, as I've stated, the algorithm. Secondly, I like that I am able to customize my own deck. So what I used to do is, after writing the kanji and the vocabulary that I learned from the Udemy course, I would then make a deck of the kanji and vocabulary, which in particular were difficult for me to remember. So how can you get it? Anki is a free app, and you can have it from the Play Store or the App Store. The last app that I used is the Innovative Language app. Most of you are more familiar with its website name, and that is JapanesePod101.com. What they do is they first start with a conversation, and then the hosts discuss the vocabulary and the grammar that was used in the conversation. The things that I like about it is, first of all, it's very, very easy to do. What I did in my case, for example, was just listen to about 2 to 3 audio materials in a day, and I used to do that during my commutes. And while I'm listening to it, I would also look up the notes. And another thing that I like about it, the company really does try to come up with interesting and even funny conversations, so you get to enjoy it. Didn't feel like studying even. I initially downloaded it because I wanted to practice my listening, but it ended up for me being more than just a listening practice tool because of the notes that I also get to see. Another thing that I like about it is they have a lot of lessons. So for example, if you go to lower intermediate season 1, that has like 55 different lessons. They have also organized their lessons in levels. So you start with like absolute beginner, on beginner, and then you have the intermediate levels and the advanced levels. And so how can you get this? You can download the app from the App Store or Play Store. You can make an account. You can have a trial account for a month, I think, but I would suggest getting a subscription. The subscription that I have is only the basic subscription, and that's the cheapest one. It's $4.99 a month, but for example, if you buy right now and you get a subscription for 12 months, then you get to save 37.5%, and that's a lot. The one that I got, I honestly forgot the exact price, but I got a 2-year subscription, so I think I was able to save more than 37.5%. And also, just another tip that I would like to give to those who are interested in getting this subscription: do not rely only on the discounts offered in the app itself. So try to search in Google JapanesePod 101 discount coupons, because that's where I found my discount coupon. And at the time, they weren't even having a sale on the app, but I was able to use the discount coupon. Alright, so those are the only 3 apps that I used when I was studying for the JLPT N2. Again, I would like to reiterate, I am not an expert in the Japanese language. I am not an expert in studying for the JLPT, but these are the things that worked out for me. And if your current way of studying is not really working out for you, then maybe you would like to give it a try as an alternative or an additional way of studying. That's it for today, and I wish you good luck in your JLPT.